Morning, colleagues.
Recording in progress.
Morning, facilitator. Morning, facilitator.
Good morning, Cindy.
Hi,
Oh,
facilitator. I just wanted to check if we can quickly test the presentation before the meeting starts.
right. It's Nabisa who's going to be presenting from our side. I'm just quickly waiting for her to join. She said I must just allow her
Okay.
a few minutes. Yeah. As soon as
Okay.
she's on the call, I'll let you. Then we can test the presentation.
Okay. Who did you say it was?
Nabisa.
Okay. So I will give her a sharing note as soon as she joins.
Yes, please.
Okay.
All
So
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hi, Charlene, can you hear me?
Yes, Sandy, I can hear you.
Okay, great, because I think some people are having difficulty, but I just want to check that you can hear me. Thanks, Charlene.
Okay, Sandy.
Thank you. Good morning, Samsung SM AL47F. Can I just ask if this is a member or what your name is?
Cindy. Hi, Cindy. It's Mabasutu.
Oh, hi, Mabasutu. I'm going to change your name so that I have your name. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay.
Good morning, Nobisa.
Good morning. My
Good morning.
apologies, I was just struggling to unmute.
No problem, Nobisa. Can we try to test the presentation before the meeting starts?
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Yes.
Here we
Are
go.
you able to see my screen, Cindy?
Yes, I can see your screen. Can we try to move the slides?
Sure.
Thanks so much. We're all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson. We have got only Ms. Mofokeng is on the platform currently, but I'm trying to get hold of our other members in case they're struggling to connect.
Thank you very much, Cindy. I personally also had a problem with the link. It didn't seem to work. So just check. It might be that other members have the same problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks.
Good morning, honourable members and the Office of the AG and parliamentary staff. I do think that we are enough members. Cindy, if you can just assist me.
Yes, Chairperson, we've got sufficient members to proceed.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, you are most welcome and thank you for joining us in this very last meeting of our committee for this year. It's been a year and I think we all deserve a good rest, and this will conclude our work for this year, and we'll come back revitalized and energetic to continue the task and big work that we have. Cindy, can you flight the agenda for us, please?
Can you see it now?
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate it. We are then on apologies. I know we received an apology from Honourable Mente. Any other apologies, Cindy?
No, that's the only one, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we note as such. Can I have a mover for the agenda? You see the agenda on the screen. Any mover for the adoption of the agenda?
Chairperson, it's Imran Subrati, and I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Honourable Subrati. Seconder? Thank you very much, Honourable King. Seconds. Then we can move on to the minutes of our previous meeting. It was circulated beforehand. I don't think we have to go through it page for page. Honourable members, are there any corrections that you want us to take note of? I don't see any hands. Can I have a mover for the adoption of the minutes of the 22nd of November?
Chairperson, Imran Subrati again, I move for the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you, Honourable Subrati. A seconder? Seconder for the adoption? Honourable Spies. Thank you very much. I take that as that you second. Then
Yes,
those, thank you, Honourable Spies. Then we've adopted those minutes. And then without further delay, I will hand over to the AG for the presentation on the strat plan, the budget, and the audit directives. You are most welcome, and thank you, AG.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, and a warm greeting to you and the honourable members of SCOAG, all the officials present in this meeting. Good morning to you. I am joined, Honourable Chair, by the Deputy Auditor-General, Ms. Debonani Chauke, together with the team that we lead here at the Office of the AG. You're quite right, it's been a long year, and we fortunately had a number of opportunities to engage with the honourable members of SCOAG. So in respect of where we are in the course of the year and the fact that you do have an agenda still, a few agenda items still to deal with, I won't go through the things that we would have said to each other before, but if need be, I'm happy to deal with questions going forward. The conversation today, Honourable Chair, really deals with our consultation with the honourable members of SCOAG on the draft strategic plan and budget for the years 2026, 2027, and 2028. This is the consultation that we're required to have with SCOAG ahead of finalizing the document and then tabling it for consideration by the House. The next area that we will talk to the honourable members of SCOAG today is the matter of consulting with you on the audit directive, which informs our audit approaches for the forthcoming audit period. I'd like to begin then with the part on the draft strategic plan and budget. The plan has been submitted to yourselves as a draft, and the key components of it are still informed by our constitutional mandate, which requires of us to operate as the supreme audit institution of South Africa, independently auditing all of the public institutions within the country and ensuring that through our work, we enable oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector. And as the honorable members are aware, we've crafted a Culture Shift 2030 strategy, which responds to the moment as we've read it, in line still with our constitutional mandate and our reputation promise. In terms of the engagement now, as I said, I'll deal with the strat plan and budget, and then we'll also talk about the audit fees, which form the basis for our budget for the forthcoming period. And then I'll deal with the other matters on the audit directive. The audits themselves are largely about the mandatory work that we're required to do every year at every single public institution, auditing all the legislatures, the national and provincial government departments, the public entities, the state-owned entities, as well as municipalities and their entities. And each year we conduct the regularity audits on these institutions. And then also each year we compile the general reports, 2 general reports, one that deals with the national and provincial governments, which is the one that we tabled a few weeks ago, and the one on local government, which we table around May of each year. We also have the mandate to conduct discretionary audits. And as the honorable members know, we don't do too much of standalone performance audits or special audits or investigations. That happens more on an ad hoc basis and on a need-to basis. We have rather focused on integrating these key principles of investigations, perspective, the lens of performance audit into the regularity audits, such that we believe that the audits we conduct each year at each institution are able to then inform significant insight that we offer to all of our stakeholders and all the players in the ecosystem of accountability, and thus equip them to fulfill their roles more effectively. The strategy itself, as you know, much of it is about ensuring that we respond to the moment. And the moment, as we've read, it requires that there be a much greater conversation on, yes, instilling proper financial management disciplines, getting the debits and credits right, but also ensuring that there is proper financial management, prudent and efficient spend of government resources, that there is performance management that ensures that on an ongoing basis, public institutions do meet their performance objectives and they do deliver on their mandates, and that there is ongoing attention to building the institutional integrity of all of our institutions. At the end of the day, what we hope to achieve is to get those that run public institutions and those that supervise and oversee them to focus on instilling the key practices and disciplines that make for institutions that consistently perform well, that consistently manage the finances in their hands better, and that are also characterized by good accountability and solid integrity principles. And we believe that if we keep shifting the dial and making sure that the insight we offer, the quality of work that we offer, does assist in driving the actions of others in the direction we have set, we believe that we will be making a solid contribution to our constitutional democracy. The honourable members of SCOAG have been party to our different conversations where we talked about, yes, it's important to get the debits and credits right, but equally important to worry about performance information and performance management and accountability thereon, but also the operating within the rule of law and ensuring that there is good attention, solid attention to building the type of institutional practices and controls that make for institutions that do attain clean audits as a basis and ensure that they have an ongoing attention to delivering on their mandates. Just last night, there was a social media tweet or photograph doing the rounds that dealt with one of the municipalities that was celebrating having achieved a qualified audit opinion. It served as yet another timely reminder for Team AGSA to continue to not just advocate for the important things, but to educate our stakeholders on what a qualified audit opinion is and to highlight just how undesirable it is, to help people understand why a clean audit is the very basic that should be required of all institutions, that an unqualified audit opinion deals with financial statements that are credible. But if one only has an unqualified audit opinion and has got performance management and performance reporting challenges, and also has got ongoing problems with complying with the rule of law, that is an undesirable category to be too comfortable in. And indeed, it tells us that there's a long way to go before we can get, especially the local government sphere, moving in the right direction. Speaking of moving in the right direction, our primary goal is to make sure that through our work, our insights, our influence, and our enforcement, which I'll talk to in a moment, we contribute to shifting more and more public institutions from doing harm to doing good. The institution I was talking about, one of the municipalities that got a qualified audit this week, they were moving from a history of disclaimer audit opinions. So when they moved to qualified, which means that the financial statements have some credibility, not full credibility, but some credibility, and we can indicate where the problems are, that's a move in the right direction. It's still far from where they should be, but it is a move in the right direction. So one has some sympathy with their need to celebrate, but then has a heightened appreciation that the journey to getting them to where they need to be is still quite far. Our work is about saying, let's move from doing harm through the disclaimers, through harming the environment, through not looking after the infrastructure assets in our hands, and let's move towards doing the basics and ultimately move towards doing good. So that even when you do have a clean audit, the conversation is how do we get you to perform even better and more consistently on your mandate. In terms of our key strategic goals of how we aim to drive these changes and these shifts, it's about focusing still on insight, which is about saying the fact that we audit every single institution and we see across institutional boundaries, we can see sectors, we can see value chains, we can see across different spheres. All of that should help to craft insight that helps those that run government do better, and to use that insight that drives better understanding of the critical things to be done, and to use it to influence people, the decision makers, the real active players in driving institutions, to influence them into making the right sort of choices and the right sort of behaviors. We also aim to use the powers of enforcement through the new powers that we've been granted as an office to drive better accountability and better consequence management, as well as better resource protection. And our fifth and sixth goals are more internally focused, which see us really looking carefully at what resources do we have in terms of financial resources, but also human capital, as well as technology. How do we make sure that we have the depth and diversity of capabilities that we need to drive the insight and to drive the influence we require, and also to ensure that we use the enforcement powers in our hands much more effectively and efficiently? And how do we ensure that we also build our own institutional practices that make for ongoing sustainable delivery on our objectives? We've crafted our strategy and also even the refresh in terms of looking at the years from 2025 to 2028 by taking stock of the context within which we operate. Politically, we take note of the fact that we are now 30 years post our democracy, and the public finance management system of the country is pretty stable in terms of what the requirements are. We've also taken stock of where the audit outcomes are 30 years into democracy. And we've also taken stock of the different changes that have come into place at both the national and provincial level on the one hand, but also the local government sphere. In this period for which we're planning, we will be dealing with the implications of changes at local government level following the 2026 local government elections. We've also looked carefully at this point that says we do have to keep driving attention of everybody towards building strong public institutions. And in this regard, we've taken into account what we've seen over the last 30 years, but also what we've seen coming through the National Development Plan as key priorities, as well as what's sitting in the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal 16. We've looked at the levels of trust that are diminishing in terms of how citizens trust public institutions in particular. And we had a reminder in the 2024 national elections when we saw the lower voter turnout, which then tells us that there is significant work to be done by all of us in the ecosystem of accountability, including those institutions that support democracy, such as ours, to do things in a way that will build trust, that responds to the diminishing trust, and that does contribute to building better trust levels. We take note of the instability, particularly at local government level, but what we see is that leadership instability continues to be a challenge in terms of stabilizing controls, stabilizing the performance of public institutions. And we've also seen that financial maladministration remains a bugbear in how public institutions run. In the economy, we take note of the slow economic growth and the resultant pressure on the fiscus. We take note of the difficulties of many of our auditees, especially in the local government sphere, to afford our audit fees, which has been a challenge for a number of years. We've also taken stock of the fact that financial sustainability remains one of the key imperatives of this institution, because for us to maintain the financial independence we have, we must ensure that we continue to safeguard our financial sustainability. The honorable members of SCOAG might be aware that the World Bank has rated South Africa as one of 2 institutions across the world that has got full independence, one of 2 supreme audit institutions that enjoys full independence. Ours is to ensure that we safeguard that independence, including the aspect on financial independence. In terms of our own capabilities, we operate in an economy and in a world where there's ongoing increases in competition for what are scarce and very specialized skills. And when we look at our financial management, our audit skills, we also look at the diversity of skill sets that we require to ensure that we are able to provide the type of quality audits and quality insights that we desire. We know that we have to continue to compete in this environment where skills are scarce. It's difficult to attract and even difficult to retain. On the social aspects, we operate in an environment where across the world, all supreme audit institutions are worried about how they can improve the impact of their work so that there is a closer line between the audit reports we issue and a positive impact that on public institutions that ultimately results in benefits to citizens. Within South Africa, what we've seen is that because we've done well in a number of areas over many, many years, when there's a problem, we often get called upon to do more and more work in support of transparency, accountability, performance, and even institutional integrity. And that, of course, puts tremendous pressure on the office. On the technological front, the rise of new technologies continues to both challenge and excite us. We see opportunities and risks that arise for us as an audit office. In terms of what we are focusing on internally, it's about ensuring that we continue on our digital transformation journey, starting with the audit processes and the audit software. The honorable members would be aware that we are well on our way to implementing a new audit software, which will change the game in terms of how we audit and how our people experience the processes of auditing internally. We believe it'll drive better quality, but also better efficiencies, as well as better experiences for our audit teams. It'll also allow us to dedicate more effort towards better analytics and better insight for the people that run government. We're also responding to ongoing increased threats in terms of cybersecurity, which affect all institutions across the world, in particular public institutions. And within South Africa, it is a risk that every institution has to remain vigilant in terms of responding to. So that remains one of our focus areas. On the area on the legal aspects, what we see is that our dispute resolution mechanism that we established about 2 years ago is bearing fruit. we're seeing that we are able to deal with pushbacks and challenges to our audit processes and our audit results in a much more efficient and effective way. Unfortunately, we still face some pressure with some of the auditees taking us to court, but that is certainly the exception rather than the norm. It just tells us that as an audit office, we have to continue to invest in our own capabilities of managing disputes, but also ensuring that we invest in our legal capabilities to deal with challenges as and when they might arise. I'll come now to our specific commitments for the performance period that we're dealing with. And this is now for the year that's going to begin on the 1st of April, 2025, and then every year after that up until the end of March 2028. So the 3-year rolling plan. In terms of shifting public sector culture, what we are committing to do is to build on the work that we've done over the last couple of years as we started to implement our strategy. One of the things that we've done well is to establish a framework for understanding this PATI, which we've called performance, accountability, transparency, and institutional integrity. It's a combination really of the things we worry about: financial management, performance management, internal controls, a posture of ethical conduct and operating within the rule of law, a posture about transparency and accountability, and an ongoing attention to delivery on mandate. So we've crafted this framework, and that forms how we've rated where people are, where institutions are at the moment, and it also informs the type of interventions we would want to make as we look to shift them towards the right. We aim to use this framework going forward and to continue to assess how we're doing and to adjust and course correct as we go. But all I can say here is that the journey continues. We've rated many of the auditees on this continuum, and we've set for ourselves some targets around which ones we want to prioritize in terms of shifting them and how we would want to do that. The areas of priority in terms of our own focus, because we can't do everything, have been informed by this rollout plan that we had established a couple of years ago. We started by saying we've got to deal with the MIs because that's a requirement of law. And we've now been able to roll out the MI process across all of our auditees. We then said we've got to focus on the value chains and key value chains that deal with critical service delivery areas. And we've done a lot of that work over the last couple of years. We focused on metros, and I believe that the 2024 audit outcomes that we will issue for local government in the middle of next year will give the honourable members a very good sense of how we're progressing in understanding metros better, but also in crafting culture shift plans for the specific institutions. We've also upped the game in terms of our attention to disclaimers. Going forward for the 2025-2028 performance period, our focus will be on secondary cities, so those that are not metros but are large cities and are stated as secondary cities and intermediary cities. And then we'll also look at the key public institutions or the public entities. In crafting this plan of migrating in this way, what we've done is we've crafted an overall strategic audit plan that helps to inform how we are going to focus our attention to different areas. It also gives some predictability to our teams on what to expect, but also our stakeholders on what to expect as areas of focus. And so having crafted this multi-year audit plan, which by the way is best practice across the world, we will continue to then implement it over the performance period. And we will also use that multi-year audit plan to craft the type of insights and recommendations that can get the type of attention we believe needs to be paid into different areas. On the influence game, this goal of influence, it's work that we've already been doing. We will intensify that work over the next coming period. On PFMA, which is the National Provincial Auditees, it is really informed by the root causes and the themes that we've shared as what we believe needs attention. These are the same recommendations and the call to action that we've given to the 7th administration following the most recent PFMA audits. We believe that professionalization needs attention, and we'll continue to advocate for that. and to track how the country is doing in giving effect to the framework that was approved by the cabinet still in the 6th administration. We'll also continue to work with other role players in driving attention to the need for much better intergovernmental planning, collaborative and coordinated execution of projects and programs, as well as support that must be given across the different spheres of government. And this, as you will remember, was one of the key messages we issued for PFMA. And the last part of what we'll focus on in terms of PFMA from an influence point of view is about dealing with the matters of quality of spend. You may recall that this time around, we focused a great deal on influencing and informing issues around infrastructure management. Last year, we dealt a lot with the higher education and training system. And we'll continue to focus on different areas, but still prioritizing this area of the need to improve the quality of spend. In regards to local government, our focus will be, and this is now again also informed by what we've diagnosed and assessed as critical areas that need attention. In local government, much of our influence work will be about getting those that run local government institutions to instill and maintain basic financial management and performance management disciplines, and to have a posture that prioritizes compliance with the rule of law. We'll continue to advocate for performance planning and management that is transparent and that does drive performance against what was given as key delivery mandates, but also accountability on those performance areas. We believe that this area in local government remains particularly weak and it needs ongoing attention. We'll deepen our insight on it and use our influence tactics to try and drive change. We also, in local government, have understood that the dearth of credible, stable information management systems makes it difficult for local government institutions to deliver on what they're supposed to do. And so we've identified this area as one of the areas where we need to drive much better influence. We'll continue to advocate for better leadership stability, as we'll continue to advocate for instilling a culture of ethics and accountability, and also ensuring that we continue to highlight the impact of too little collaboration and coordination in the implementation of the delivery programs in local government. And our goals for influence will be measured using these indicators that are on the screen now. The first one will be about to what extent have we been working within the accountability ecosystem, sharing insight and informing action by different players in the different accountability areas of this ecosystem, so that they are operating better and delivering effectively. As you know, we've always said that the one way to really start to win on the journey towards performance and accountability is about ensuring that every role player does fulfill on their mandate. And so whether it's internal audit committees, the accounting officers, the mayors and the councils, the coordinating departments, parliaments, and other legislatures, all of those role players will be spending even more time with and ensuring that we are more deliberate in supporting them and enabling them to do their work so that they are more effective. We'll also build on the work we've done in the previous year, which was to conduct a stakeholder survey, a pretty broad one that gave us a very good sense of what the areas of improvement are. And we have crafted those, and our work over the next period will be about continuing to implement those initiatives. We'll also invest in building and leveraging even greater partnerships with other players in the ecosystem of accountability. But from an enforcement point of view, the first 5 years, we focused on implementing the MI powers across all of our auditees. We focused on building our own capacity in-house to implement this new tool. And we also started to do some work. And we've learned that a few things over time. We've learned on how to get MIs processed more effectively and efficiently within the system. We've learned how to highlight high impact MIs and use those to drive the better conversations, the better impact within institutions. We've also learned how to collaborate even better with other public bodies, especially those that have got investigative powers and mandates, as well as those in law enforcement. So we'll continue to learn from what we've seen before and to improve on what we've done in the past. The honourable members can expect to see even greater resource protection, greater impact from the work that we do. I still hope we don't get to a COD, but it may well be that we get to that point. I've always said to anyone who cares to listen, the moment we issue a certificate of debt, it must highlight to everybody that everyone else in the ecosystem of accountability has actually failed. And so whilst we might want to celebrate that moment when we do issue a COD, for me, I'm not sure that it will be a moment worthy of celebration, because it will be a reminder of the systemic failure in different parts of the ecosystem of accountability. On sustainably, the effort will be about relooking at our funding plan. We do have a very good funding model, which has served us very well for a number of years. It is imperative that we continue to look at how to enhance it going forward. So that will enjoy some attention over the forthcoming period. In the meantime, we'll continue to optimize our efficiencies and our cost management. We'll also internally continue to look at our ethics management program, which, as you know, we measure the effectiveness of through the ethics rating that's done externally. We have set for ourselves a target of attaining and maintaining a AA rating. It's a rating we've had before. In terms of also within the internal environment, we'll continue to capacitate the office by skills development and training, so that we do have a base of professionals that is continually developing and continually improving its ability to respond to the audit quality issues, but also to our challenges and ambitions on influence as well as enforcement and insights as well. On audit quality, as you know, we had a slip in the 2024 performance year. Dealing with monitoring reviews on our quality, we will continue to focus on that and ensure that the quality of our files, but also the quality management processes within the office stabilizes. Our targets include, yes, the area of quality, which we've not changed for many years. It's a very high target, but we believe it remains appropriate. We've also set for ourselves a target around delivering audits on a timely basis. Again, this is a target we've kept for a long time. It is quite high, especially in an environment where submissions don't often happen on time, but worse still, we get poor quality submissions. However, we do believe that we've got to fulfill our own constitutional and legislative duty to audit and report on time. So we will continue to focus on improving the timeliness of our audits. In terms of the financial management aspect, we've set the surplus target, which is it's the same one you've seen before, as well as a target for cash availability, for cash safety, which is quite important in our realm. The area of ethics maturity is still at a AA, as you know, and of course the clean audit is an area that we dare not let slip. Internally focused as well, we have targets that we've set for ourselves in how we manage the people we have in the office. Without the members of Team AGSA being capacitated, being well, being enabled to do their work, we would not have the ability to fulfill our mandate. So this area of people management continues to enjoy tremendous attention internally. We worry about turnover of high performing employees because that's an important measure of the attractiveness of our office as an employer, the ability of the office to retain top talent and to also continue to favorably compete against our peers in both the private and public sectors. We also have set for ourselves a pretty high target in terms of the people that write and pass the qualifying exams set by the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Again, that's a very good measure for how well we're doing in recruiting, but also training and supporting our young people to realize their own dreams and qualify as chartered accountants. And again, whether they stay in the office or not, we believe that it is a tremendous contribution to the profession, to the economy, but also to the lives of individuals. We have conducted a culture survey internally, and over time we'll continue to do a dipstick to see how well we're doing in improving on the culture within the office, so that over time it becomes the type of culture that we desire, one that is conducive to delivering on our mandate with people who are well supported, and people who behave in a way that we have all agreed is desirable. Our fifth goal deals with efficiently, and that's really about dealing with our digital transformation journey and making gains in that regard, leveraging the use of technology and realizing operational efficiencies as we go, and also improving our use of data and business analytics for the internal management aspects of the corporate, but also in terms of how we use data that's available to us through the audit process as we drive insight. Our primary focus over the forthcoming period will be on the audit software project. I'd like to come now to the budget, which the DAG will support me on in terms of dealing with the questions as they arise. But I think on a very high level, we've spent some time looking at the environment, and we have sought hard to find a balance between passing on audit fees that are fair, audit fee increases that are fair and are reflective of the cost of auditing, but also taking into account the fact that many of our auditees have suffered budget cuts. So it's about balancing all of those things all the time. We're still going to make sure that we are efficient in how we run the office, that we are able still to also make the type of investments we must make, especially on technology, so that our office is able to deliver on its mandate today and going forward. Our budgets for the forthcoming period also incorporate an accrual or a provision for the significant cash outlay that will be associated with our investments in technologies. Our income statement, I think I'll just deal with the last column, which is the budget 25-26, which gives you a sense of where we will be relative to the budget for the 24-25 year, which we're already in. I'll point out that we aim to increase audit fees by a very small margin. If you see that we're moving from 5 billion to 5.5 billion in the year, much of it really being work done by ourselves as against work being done by the contract work allocation process by the private firms to whom we allocate contract work. The gross profit margin, you'll see that it's pretty consistent from 2.1 billion 2025 to 2.2 billion 2025-26. And that's really because we've kept our markups pretty much the same. The other income relates to mostly to the interest income that we earn when we have cash in the bank. The overheads, you'll see that in 2025, it's at 2 billion and pretty much the same level in 2025-26. I want to draw your attention to the last line, which says appropriation for the Public Audit Act. That was the appropriation that we were getting from the National Treasury to support us in implementing the new powers that we had. In 2023-24, we got 44 million from them. We've not budgeted for any more money out of them over the forthcoming period. We remain in negotiations with the National Treasury on how they might support these new requirements in terms of implementing on our powers. Fortunately, over time, we've been able to demonstrate that not only are we able to look after the money in our hands, but importantly, there is value to be had by us implementing the MI process in terms of resource protection as well as other impacts. The capital expenditure program is largely in the area of computer software, as well as the leases where in terms of our offices where people are. I think I'd like to pause there, Honourable Chair, and get to the directive. Maybe I can take some guidance from you whether you would like to engage on this part of the submission at this stage, or if I can move on to the directive at this stage, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, AG. I think you can move on, and then we'll deal with all your presentations or everything then and engage on it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, for that guidance. In terms of the audit directive, we are consulting with the honourable members of SCOAG in line with the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Audit Act to give you a sense of the type of updates we aim to put into the audit directive. I will only finalize the directive after I have taken into account your comments and your input. This directive essentially sets the standards. It also sets out specifics on the frequency, the nature, and the scope of our audits. It's a directive that has remained quite stable for a number of years. There's very little changes we've made over time. The changes we want to make in this particular period relate to really giving some sense of how we will manage requests for real-time audits. The honourable members will recall that in the response to the COVID emergency, we were called upon to conduct real-time audits, which was the first ever set of real-time audits that the office had conducted. And we also learned alongside our international colleagues who conducted similar work. And then we had the floods in KZN and the Eastern Cape, and we were asked to conduct real-time audits in that space as well. The work that we did was of such relevance and of such use and value to many of our stakeholders that we have been receiving many more requests for real-time audits. So we thought it best to put in place some principles so that all of our stakeholders are well aware of, first of all, how we understand real-time audits and make sure we all have a consistent definition of those, and also highlight what process we would follow in processing a particular request that's put to us for a real-time audit. We set out the type of criteria we would bring into our analysis of a particular request. And we also put in the directive a very firm statement that at the end of the day, it is the AG that must decide whether or not to accept or reject a request for a real-time audit. It's really just about giving clarity to all of our stakeholders on how we will manage those requests. The second area that we believe we wanted to change in the audit directive relates to us having designed and now implementing the multi-year audit plan, which is the overall strategic audit plan. It gives much greater predictability for our stakeholders and for our teams. It also allows even the auditors that conduct work on our behalf, especially those that have been appointed by the auditees themselves and are operating on the basis of Section 4.3 of the Public Audit Act. It gives them some sense of what we will expect as they conduct audits on our behalf. So we've included reference to the multi-year audit plan in the audit directive. We've also removed a section that was saying that we would be phasing in the implementation of MIs because now we've completed the phase in. So it's just prudent to take out the part that's no longer applicable. Those are the minor amendments we want to make to the audit directive. And I would like to then leave it to the committee to either pose questions, but also to consider what we are putting together as proposals for your consideration and input. Honourable Chair, that is the submission we wanted to make on the Blue Book, which is the strat plan and budget, but also on the audit directive. I'll hand back to you, Honourable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, AG, and let me welcome the presentation and the information that you also presented to us on the audit directives and the changes there. Honourable members, I'm going to open the floor for questions and for engagement. Please raise your hands so that I can recognize you. Don't see any hands yet or hands on your gadgets. The AG referred to the a municipality that is celebrating a qualified audit opinion, and maybe colleagues would remember this, but in 2012 in Gauteng, there was also a municipality that celebrated a qualified audit opinion. They went so far as to print T-shirts to celebrate it, and they sent the Premier of Gauteng, who was at that stage Mvula Mokunyane, a T-shirt, and she said, "I can't wear that. I can't even use this as pajamas." So just to also say that that has happened in the past, but it also highlights the fact that we have a lot of work to do to educate all stakeholders and everybody involved in the terminology, because if you don't understand it, you can also not really implement and practice and improve your audit outcomes and what is necessary to achieve that. I see a few hands. Let me start with Honourable Beasley and then Honourable Subrati. Honourable Beasley.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the AG and all the staff and honourable members. Yeah, I think it was a very good, excellent presentation. So thank you. So my first question is just in terms of the AG plays an important role in the eco cycle, and just a question to the AG. You know, as Parliament breaks this week and we go on holiday, you know, what message would the AG like to pass on to Parliament so that we can sit and reflect on over this period as how we can play our role in improving the whole accountability eco cycle? So what her thoughts that Parliament can do to raise their particular game. And then just in terms of the real-time audit, who can actually request that? And I'll just be interested to have feedback. Is there a specific body that can request a real-time audit, or does it have to actually be the client per se? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Beasley. Honourable Subrati. Muted. Subrati, no, he's fell off. Honourable Spies, I see your hand.
Chair, I don't know what is this morning with this network here, but thank you so much. If it's fine, if I can just keep my video off, Chair.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to the AG and colleagues. Mine is just a few questions, and I would like to start by welcoming the presentation, AG, as always, very comprehensive, very clear. In terms of your culture shift objective, I just a bit more detail on how you will measure the success of this objective, and the specific indicators that you will use to track the progress on this. Then I also would like to find out how the AG will leverage the digital transformation to enhance obviously your productivity, your employees' well-being, and also the overall impacts, and what timelines are in place for achieving this goal. And then lastly, I want to know how you, Madam AG, will ensure that your strategic objectives are definitely aligned with the needs and priorities of all your stakeholders, and most, at the top of it, including citizens, obviously, then government entities and also other accountability institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Spies. Any other hands, colleagues? Anything from my side, AG? I'm covered by Honourable Beasley on the real-time audits. I also wanted to check with you who can request that. He covered me there. On the appropriation for the MI process, I think that is one of the main objectives of our engagements with National Treasury as well. It has now been postponed, but that is one of the objectives of the committee, is to engage on the continued appropriation for that process and those functions. On technology, I think it's very important that you mention the digital transformation, and that is included in the plan, and I think I welcome that, and the committee welcomes that. But then on the performance targets, AG, with regards to maintaining an enabling reputation with stakeholders, I'm aware of the fact that there's currently a rebranding and assessment process that an external stakeholder contractor has been appointed to conduct such a process. Is that included in that target? And what is the details thereof? Because that might affect that target, obviously, because the brand and everything that a brand encompasses does have an effect on how stakeholders will see the institution and the reputation of the institution. And what's the timelines with regards to that rebranding process? Is it in line with this strat plan? Is it a multi-year contract to have that rebranding done? If you can just talk to us with regards to the rebranding process. And that is from my side. I see Honorable Subrati is back with us. Honorable Subrati, you're welcome. You can unmute. Subrati, I don't think you are managing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm having a very poor day with connectivity today.
Okay, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, we can hear you. You can continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, can you?
I think we are losing you again, Honorable Subrati. I think if you can move to somewhere where there's better signal. I know the weather, if you are in Cape Town, the weather is not assisting connectivity. Well, AG, I'm going to hand over to you to answer those questions. And if Honorable Subrati manages to re-establish connection, I'll give him an opportunity again. AG?
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, and to the honourable members for their questions. Honourable Beasley, the real-time audits, what we set out in our directive is that the requests that come from specific executive authorities, we would look at. If it comes from an accounting officer, we would also look at it. We've also, in terms of looking at different institutions across the space, we would look at requests that come from a legislature, through a portfolio committee, or even through the president from an executive point of view. So it's individual executive as well as collective, as well as the legislatures and the accounting officers. I hope that assists. We wouldn't be responding necessarily to a real-time audit request that comes from citizens or from civil society. We really would want to do it in a way that is supportive of the work of the accounting officers and the executive authorities and parliaments primarily. In terms of the indicators we set on the culture shift, Honourable Speaker, what we've done is we have a target internally, which is quite scary, but I think it's energizing us. We've said to ourselves, if we can shift 30% of our auditees by 2030. If we can shift them from one category to the other, if we can shift 30% out of 30, we would have, by 2030, we would have done a good thing. And we have prioritized the impactful ones. So you'll see that on our multi-year audit plan, we've specifically looked at metros, we've looked at value chains in terms of the key service delivery departments, so those high impact auditees. It's great if we can move a smaller entity, let's say the provincial treasury, from just being a clean audit to really delivering on its mandate within the province, which in many ways we've started to do. We believe that's good and that's exciting. But we also believe that if we can start to focus on the big ones, the high impact ones, and start to shift them along the continuum, we would have done a very good thing. We have already rated them and we've placed them in different categories of the continuum. We've not made individual ratings public. That's currently the engagement between ourselves and the people that run those institutions, as part of getting them to understand where we're coming from and to embrace the recommendations we've put in place so that they are able to move in the right direction. And the right direction is still informed by those principles: better performance, better accountability, better transparency, and better institutional integrity. In institutional integrity is looking at prioritizing ethical conduct, ensuring that there's responsiveness to our audit findings, as well as those of internal audit, strengthening internal controls, implementing consequence management, because those are the things that will drive the integrity of the institution. So I hope that I said that that's an internal measure. We've been a little bit shy to put it in the public domain. It's still a big, hairy, scary, audacious goal, because the reality is, as Team AGSA, we don't run public institutions. We can only enforce, influence, and give better insight. It's a target we've set, which, as I say, is challenging, but it is certainly most energizing for all of our teams. On digital transformation, our primary focus now, Honourable Speaker, is on implementing the audit software project, which I think we spoke about when we dealt with the audit, annual report. And also we want to continue to drive efficiencies through smaller investments internally. So for example, some of the things we've done in the recent past are to implement robotics into our internal environment to help us just become that much more efficient in some of our processes. It's about doing more and more of those things so that we can start to get better efficiency. But in terms of the big project, the primary goal is on the audit software, which is quite advanced. And then after that, we will then look at the ERP system more significantly. Our timeline for implementing the audit software project, I think the DAG is better equipped to engage on that, but I know that pretty shortly there'll be pilots being run in the different cycles of the audit processes. In terms of the alignment of our priorities with stakeholders. So in 2024 performance year, we conducted a rating, a survey, a pretty broad survey that gave us feedback from a broad range of stakeholders on how they perceive us, whether it was about how our messages land, the type of recommendations we offer, the audit process, the behavior of our staff. So all of that feedback we were able to take in. And I do want to highlight that in more instances like not, far more than not, we got very, very good feedback, very positive feedback. However, as an institution that wants to continue to improve, what we did was we took into account the weaker areas of what they were telling us. We've designed a response plan. And so the 2025 performance year and the 2026 performance year are about implementing those improvement exercises so that by the time we go back to do another survey in 2027, we'll be able to see improvement. That's our target. We believe that, and I think in many ways I'm responding to some of the questions you were posing, Honourable Wessels. The fact that we do these surveys and respond to them, we engage with all of our stakeholders on a regular basis. We have looked at the National Development Plan, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Africa 2063, Agenda 2063 for the continent, as well as the priorities even set by the 7th administration. We've shaped the priority areas on our multi-year audit plan to respond to all of those. And we continue to check that we're not missing anything significant. Because if we focus our audit effort on things that really matter and things that are relevant to our stakeholders, we will be able to meet the needs of stakeholders. But then, of course, we have to continue to engage with them and take on board the feedback we receive. It's going to be difficult to meet the needs of all of our stakeholders, but I want to commit that we will continue to try hard to meet as much of the demands as we possibly can. In terms of, there's a question, Honourable Fibrati, I think that's being put on the chat. Have the recommendations been taken into account on ICT vulnerability, debt collections, and capacity for MIs? Yes, indeed, they have. The ICT vulnerability assessments continue to enjoy the attention of the executive team, and you'll see that in our blue book, our strategic plan, that area of strengthening our controls on bolstering the security against cyber attacks, that continues to enjoy our attention. Part of the weakness we have is that our systems are quite old, but we continue to invest in managing that. It would be wonderful if we could implement a new ERP system in the next year, but we've decided to rather focus on the audit software program first, and then we'll do the ERP, because the bandwidth and the resources we would need to manage two big projects simply isn't available to us. In terms of the recommendation for the audit committee, I think the audit committee, I'm not sure which specific recommendation you were referring to. There are quite a few of these questions. Okay, maybe let me try and deal with them. On the external auditors, I believe that the audit committee and the honourable members of SCOAG will certainly find each other in terms of how we deal with the appointment of the external auditors. One of the things that we have experienced and learned over time is that the pool of external auditors that are available to serve as independent external auditors for our office is quite small. To get a firm of good positioning in the market, of appropriate capability, to opt out of conducting contract work or conducting audits in the public sector on our behalf, and rather focus on serving as our own external auditors. To get that is not easy. So we have journeyed with the current firm for a number of years now. There's been a change in the partner, so the partner has been rotated. And then there's an ongoing assessment on the independence of that audit firm. However, I do take on board the comments and concerns raised by SCOAG, and I would rather allow the audit committee to engage with yourselves at the appropriate time. I think it's very difficult for the AG to appoint their own auditors. But I'm just giving the context of what we experienced, especially having been DAG, where this was an area I had to worry about for many years. The staff turnover, we don't have a very high staff turnover. That's not the issue, actually. So you'll see that on our targets, we've put in place to monitor the turnover of high potential staff, so that we keep our eye on it. We are never complacent on staff turnover, but we don't have any data or any experience that suggests that our staff turnover is beyond the norm. In fact, we often are under what happens in other spaces, and we compare ourselves against the private sector firms. Can we intervene in the water crisis? What we can do and have done is two things. The first one is that in the work that we do when we audit the municipalities in particular, we do flag the water losses that come through inappropriate levels of maintenance on existing infrastructure, but also losses that come as a result of incorrect billing, or even people who get water or access water that is then not billed for, either because they've accessed the lines illegally. The water losses numbers is an area we've flagged for a long time. I guess all we can do is continue to flag it and to link it to our other audit messages. The second part of what we've been doing is to focus a lot more on the water sector as one of the critical value chains. One of the benefits of auditing the department, the water trading entity, the TCTA, which deals with infrastructure, but also auditing the water boards and the municipalities, is that we get to see the entire value chain. And so what we've done is use that vantage point to give insight to the people that are responsible for that water sector. We've had a number of workshops with the executive and the administration responsible for water, and we've been able to share with them the information we have on areas that need attention. And in many ways, they've taken that on board. We are also, I want to make this undertaking, we are planning to issue a second standalone water sector report in the towards the end of the first quarter next year. So that there is greater insight on where the problems are. And hopefully that'll inform the type of actions collectively that will start to deal with the water crisis more systematically, rather than responding to a crisis in this area and then another one in a different area. The audit done on the basic education on people living with disabilities, that's a special audit. We haven't yet tabled it. I think when we do table it, you'll be able to see the outcome of that report. What I have heard from the DG, responsible for the Department of Water, of women, as well as young people, was a high level of appreciation on the insight that our audit was able to grant them as the people responsible for driving the type of policies that do improve access to education for children with disabilities. But once the report is tabled, we'll make sure that, Honourable Member, you are given access to those insights. It was a performance audit, by the way. Has the outcome of basic education influenced current budget allocations? I don't believe so. I'm not aware that audit outcomes have influenced the allocations within the education, but the education sector. In terms of, could we intervene in terms of dealing with duplication and inefficiencies? So yes, what we do is, in looking at value chains and looking across sectors and across institutional boundaries, we're able to highlight areas of fragmentation in terms of policy and practice, but also we're also able to highlight areas where there is duplication of effort. So that's part of being able to look across the value chain and highlight these problems. So whether it's about how projects are planned for and executed such that there is a human settlements development and houses are built, but then the bulk infrastructure is not there. Citizens don't benefit. And that's an area of lack of coordination between two different spheres of government. We're able to raise that and highlight the risks. And in fact, we're starting to raise MIs in terms of this area. So we'll continue to do so. In terms of MIs, the difficulties have been about, I think as we were learning, we've been raising MIs. Remember, we started very small. In the first year, we started with 16 PFMA auditees and only 9 MFMA auditees. And we've been increasing that across the board, across every reporting period. Only now are we implementing at all of the auditees. And I do believe that we've done a good job of identifying MIs. Some of the challenges we've experienced have been about slow responses by the accounting officers, instability at the area of accounting officer, because then what happens is we have to start the process again. Every new accounting officer, whether they're acting or fully appointed, wants to be given the opportunity to engage with the matter at hand before we can progress it. And we have to grant them that in terms of their practice. So that's been an area of challenge. And maybe the other area is that internally we were also learning as we went, and there are areas where we could have been much quicker to make decisions about whether the proposed action was adequate and appropriate. I do believe that we gave, in too many instances, too much of a benefit of the doubt. And so we're dealing with that in terms of capacity building internally and setting standards for how we will deal with these matters internally. So it's an issue about of transition between external and internal factors. How do we determine fees for outsourced services? What we do is they charge the same. We do set a fee in terms of the amount of money per hour that they are able to charge. And then they do charge for that, depending on how much time they spend on an audit, and then we pay them accordingly. The difficulty is that we take no margin. They take the full margin on the fees, and then we also struggle to collect, but we have to pay them. So sometimes we face the pressure of having paid the external audit firm, and then the auditee doesn't pay us, and then we are out of pocket for an extended period. Where are we struggling? So I think we would like the honorable members of SCOAC to continue to focus on this area of non-payment of our fees. Some of it is, yes, affordability, but in too many instances, it's about far too many auditees not prioritizing paying for this governance aspect of their responsibilities. And so the discipline of paying for audit fees has been slipping gradually over a number of years. And it's now come to a point where we believe that there needs to be greater advocacy for individual accounting officers and the executive authorities to prioritize this. And yes, I do concede some of them do have real cash flow pressure, but as I say, in far too many instances, there is just poor discipline. When we raise the issues about how in local government there'll be money paid to consultants to prepare financial statements, and yet no money available to pay for the audit fees, you've then got to ask the question on what the priorities really are. There was a question on branding. I'm not sure if the DAG has an answer on that. May I ask the DAG just to check if there's anything else I might have missed, whether it was on the audit software, or pardon me, on the digital transformation journey, but also on the question on branding. And then I'll hand back to the chair, if I may allow the DAG, please. Thanks, DAG.
You're welcome, DAG.
Thanks, AG. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. On the questions that AG has referred to me, the one on the digital transformation, it is a 7-year journey, but we've got specific focus areas. The audit software one specifically, we are currently on the testing phase. We are going to have a planned rollout. The first, we're going to pilot the new software in our February PFMA audit cycle. We don't want to pilot too many because we don't want to disrupt the audit cycle. And then we're going to extend our pilot in the MFMA cycle next year with the intention of full rollout in our 2026 audit cycle. But it is not only about the audit software. There are a number of other projects that we are rolling out. One of them is the digital enabled audit approach, which allows us to do quite a number of 100% coverage. This year, we're able to do that in 21 entities. We plan to roll it out to more. What that will do, to the question that was asked by Honorable Spears earlier in terms of the impact of digital transformation to the well-being of our people and also to our efficiencies, is that it allows us to cover 100% population, but also it will give us the capability to be able to draw the lines between various entities. We do think that the insight and the ability that particular capability will give us will go a long way to ensure that we achieve our efficiency goals, but also be able to give better insight. What is much more exciting is with our ability to access the data on real-time basis, we should be able in the future to explore continuous auditing, which we think will improve the overall control environment. On the rebranding, Honorable Chair, on your question, we do have a service provider that we appointed. As auditors, we're not very good in branding ourselves. The focus is branding the office primarily to be an employee of choice. There is a talent war out there. While we don't have a problem with staff turnover, we find that it's slightly difficult to attract employees to join us, especially at the trainee level. When people think about audit firms, AGSA is not usually top choice. And what we want to do is to find a better way to excite the youngsters to think about joining AGSA. On average, we need about 400 trainees every year to join our audit CA program. And we struggle to get those numbers. So the focus is mainly on being an employee of choice so that people can think about us and then we can win on a talent war. I hope I've addressed the questions that you have referred to me, AG. Thank you. Back to you, AG.
Thank you, DAG. Chair, I'll hand back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, AG and DAG, for responding to those questions. Any follow-up questions, honourable members? I see Honourable Spies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, Chair, I forgot just on the audit directive. There's just one or two questions that I would like to ask. I think in terms of the sorry, the multi-year audit plan, I want to understand from the Auditor-General how will they ensure that the focus areas that are identified through the MYAP are indeed aligned with the strategic objectives of the Auditor-General, and what impact is expected on the audit process. And then I also would like to know to the AG how you will ensure that the updated directive is flexible enough to accommodate possible emerging risks and issues while maintaining its overall effectiveness and relevance. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Spies. Any other follow-up questions? Hans, AG, if you respond to that, please.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Honourable Spies, maybe let me start with the directive. Honourable Chair, please forgive me. I did make an error when I talked about who could request the real-time audits. I erroneously included the accounting officer. We excluded the accounting officer, and I remember why. Accounting officers have a duty to put in place internal audit functions that can help them drive the type of vigilance that they need in terms of how they roll out their financial expenditures. So what we would prefer is to get them to deploy internal audit rather than asking us to conduct real-time audits. However, requests from executive authorities as well as from the legislatures or council or parliament would be favorably looked at. In terms of the directive itself, Honourable Spies, we do update it every year. So part of the consultation with you today is about updating it for the forthcoming year. If there are matters that we believe need attention this time next year, we'll certainly bring it back with the type of adjustments that are required. So it does give us this level of annual consideration does give us the opportunity to respond to any changes in the environment. On the My App itself, the multi-year audit plan, what we've done is in shaping the choices of what we will prioritize in different years, we have taken into account the provisions of the National Development Plan. We've taken into account the priorities that have been set by the administration in place. We've also taken into account the priorities as per our commitments on the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the aspirations set out in Agenda 2063. If anything should change as we go, and this is one of the areas that I believe does assist, we do look at those choices every year again. So we do reconfirm them. So they're not stuck in a formulation that says that's all we'll look at for 3 years. If anything should change, we would have the ability to refocus. I want to also highlight that it doesn't mean that we won't audit everybody. It doesn't mean that we won't do our very best to give them insights as we go, or that we won't focus on influence in their sectors. What we've done with the multi-year audit plan is to really decide on where we will deploy, especially our scarce resources, and also how we will focus on interventions with other players in the ecosystem that will drive the type of attention that we believe needs to be put in place. So I want to give you every assurance that the My App is not static, and we do check it regularly. to ensure that it is responsive to the priorities that have been set in the country. It's also responsive to where the big budget items are, where the high impact auditees are. And if anything should happen, we will be able to update it. The audit process for individual audits remains as you know it to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, AG, and yes, thank you for that information on the WUCAN request and the accounting officer that's excluded. That does make sense. I've omitted one issue, AG, and apologies for that. Honourable members would know that we received correspondence from National Treasury, which we are going to deal with later. But I think it is important to just engage with the AG on this issue now as well. And it relates to the non-payment of audit fees that the AG also asked the committee to assist with. And flowing from our engagement with National Treasury, they did write to all the municipalities who do have outstanding fees, and they did also engage with state-owned companies which are owing the AGSA. But then in one of the points that they do make in summary, they say that they are engaging with the AGSA on their determination of the audit fee structure due to the growing calls from auditees that the audit fees are high and audit fees are growing at a faster pace than budgets. Discussions with the AGSA also includes establishing a formal structure to review for audit fee calculations as per Section 23(1) of the Public Audit Act. In this regard, the AGSA undertook to share their detailed revenue budget and audit fees recovered per auditee. AGSA, if I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could comment on this, because the committee will have to take this into account and also engage further in our engagements next year with National Treasury on these aspects, and it is now back and forth. So if you can comment on the audit fees and the calls by auditees that it is growing faster than their budgets. I don't know if you can respond to that, AG, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Honourable Chair. The reality is that the budgets for many of the departments have been either reduced or increased by less than inflation. The trick is that internally, the people we deploy to conduct these audits are people whose salaries have been increasing at the rate of inflation. So it's about balancing all of these different factors. What we have to get to, I believe, are three things. The first one is to continue to look at the audit program so that we limit the number of hours we are spending actually auditing in different environments. Much of the drivers for the audit program are about our methodology, which we've looked at and will continue to look at. It's about the audit software, which the DAG indicated is getting the attention it deserves. But it's also about the reporting requirements that exist, especially for local government, and the obligations for them to comply with different regulations and prescripts, which we have to audit against, and we can't not audit against that. However, there may be areas where we can rationalize that through the work of the National Treasury, because they set the standards and the requirements, and we would have to then make sure that we work with them to reduce the audit effort. Maybe the last thing that needs attention is the preparation that different auditees make as we prepare for audit. You would have noticed that when we issue our audit reports, we spend a bit of time talking about the quality of submissions, the quality of financial statements that are submitted to us when we begin our audits. And yes, we do give opportunity for auditees to improve the quality and credibility of the financial statements by responding to the errors we find and making adjustments. However, it does result in an unproductive back and forth. And we're seeing that the quality of financial statements is not yet improving. In PFMA, we ended up with a good 77% that published quality financial statements. but the quality submissions were only 57%, and MFMA is even worse. So the discipline of financial management and preparing credible, well-supported financial records by the time that we arrive for audit, that discipline has to be instilled. And I think that if we get that done, it'll reduce the audit effort. I want to also commit that when we engage next, Honorable Chair, we will share with you a couple of things. One is the impact of the work we've done to differentiate our audit effort, so that we can reduce the amount of time we're spending in auditees, and to give you insight on the impact that we've been able to have in terms of reducing the audit effort as part of our own response to this. The second part I believe we'll be able to share with you is some context as to the audit fee that we charge in relation to budgets, individual institutions, but also at the center, just in terms of context, so that the conversation we have is one that is informed by data. So that's on the audit fee themselves. It's about quality of submissions, which is about discipline and what people insist on within the institutions. It's about the audit effort, which I know that we have to deal with. It's about the standards that they have to report on and the regulations that they have to comply with. That's the work we must do with the National Treasury. And it's also about ensuring that internally we continue to drive efficiencies. Then the collections part is about the culture of not paying. So some of the big complainants about audit fees tend to be people who've prioritized other things rather than actually paying audit fees. And of course, what it does is it crowds out the real concerns of people who just can't afford to pay. You've got those who are ill-disciplined, and then you've got those who are genuinely unable to afford to pay. And so we've got to push out the noise and deal with the ones who are unable to pay. Section 23 of the Public Audit Act, it does require that the National Treasury work with us to top up those fees that are unaffordable for some of the auditees. And the work that needs to be done there must continue to fine-tune the list of municipalities in particular that don't have the budgets to support the audit fees, the fair audit fees. So that is a piece of work that we'll have to continue to do with the National Treasury. So in essence, Honourable Chair, that will be our response. There's still some work to be done by us, by the auditees, and by the Treasury. And we'll continue to work with each other in giving effect to this. At the end of the day, we have to audit, and we have to audit against the rules that are set. And we have to protect the institutional integrity of the AGSA. And part of it is about making sure we have the people with the right skills to do the work, to conduct the work thoroughly so that the quality of that work is unquestionable, and that we're able to fulfill our constitutional mandate. It's a very serious issue, one that enjoys the attention of the leadership team here, and I'm glad that it'll form part of our engagement with SCOAG and the National Treasury going forward. That will be my response at this time, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AG. There's one further question from Honourable Subrati on the chat. He asks, I think Honourable Subrati thinks that we haven't worked hard enough this year, so we must just continue with questions, but that's 100%. He just asked who oversees the AG procurement processes of capital and other expenditures such as leases.
No, thank you very much, Honourable Subrati. Maybe let me allow the DAG to respond to this. He is the one who is primarily responsible for this area as the leader of the administration. DAG?
Thank you, AG. Good morning once again, honorable members. So on who oversees the AG's procurement processes on capital and other expenditure, e.g. leases. So as AG, we've got a number of processes that we've put in place that allow us to ensure that our procurement processes are done in line with the expectation of the Constitution. As you will be aware that the AGSA as an office, we are accountable to the Constitution and our founding legislation, the Public Auditing Act. What we then do to supplement that is we develop policies and procedures that allow us to do work. We are not governed by the PFMA, but most of our policies and procedures are in line with the PFMA. So we then use that. We have a committee, while it's internally, it's called Tender Committee, that oversees all our procurement activities. Based on the thresholds that we have set, those will go to the Tender Committee, and upon the Tender Committee approving those based on our management, our MEF, which is how we delegate our responsibilities, most of them will then come through to be approved by myself. What we have recently introduced, especially seeing that we're going to be spending quite a bit of money on our digital transformation, is a new committee that is made up of EXCO members that assesses the business case of the various investment opportunities. So when there's an investment that is identified, we have to assess the business case of that particular investment, see that the benefits that we're going to get out of that particular investment does make sense. What we do is then to be able to prioritize, since we've got competing needs within the organization, to then invest on those projects that will give us the best returns. One classic example is when we have to make a decision between prioritization of the audit software project vis-a-vis the ERP. While the ERP will go a long way to make our internal work easier, it was important that we focus on the frontline business of auditing. And that is why we prioritize the audit software project. Ultimately, our procurement processes and our internal controls are overseen by the audit committee, because we do report ultimately on everything that gets done in our financials, which get audited by the independent external auditors. So overall, we do make sure that we lead by example, and our procurement processes are done in a manner that we will be proud of ourselves. And I hope that answers the question in terms of how I understood it. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, DAG. I think that does cover it, and I think that provides clarity. Let me, on behalf of the committee, thank you, AG and DAG, firstly for today's engagement, for the presentation, but also for the stellar work that you do, for your leadership, AG, and for providing leadership of the institution, and the work that I'm just going to switch off my video because it seems my connection is also unstable, for the work that the AGSA does to really support our constitutional democracy, to strengthen accountability. And we are, I think, proud is the correct word, of the work done by the AGSA. I see one hand on Mwali. Is that a question? We want to conclude, but I will give you an opportunity.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much to the AG. I get in just to appreciate all the engagements, all the questions. I was largely covered by the members, but also I want to say this as a takeaway, to say I've noticed that some of the auditees are struggling with the audit fees as a result of some historical fruitless and wasteful expenditure that is still that they have to pay interest on. Take, for instance, some municipalities owe big amounts to ESCOM, and they are charged interest, and they incur interest because of the amount owing to ESCOM. And that interest adds on the amount of fruitless and wasteful expenditure at the end of the period, or they have to pay those interest amounts for historical debts to ESCOM. So then that leads to some of the auditors being unable to pay their audit fees at the time when they are due, when Auditor-General has to come in and do the audits. So I wish that all the important role players in this can come together, and more especially with the help of the Office of or with the help of Treasury, to try and assist these auditees to get them back on track so that they are able to also pay the audit fees as they are required to pay the Auditor General their audit fees. Yes, thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Wali. I think your point is well noted, and remember that, and let's further engage on that when we engage with National Treasury, and that's on our draft program for next year, that will further these engagements, especially on the interventions to assist auditees, but also to ensure that this issue of outstanding audit fees and the struggle of financially distressed municipalities especially is intervened, and that we can get solutions with regards to that. So your point well noted. Thank you for that. Let me conclude this part of our agenda. And once again, thanks the AG and the staff members from the AGSA. And have a good rest, AG and DAG and all the staff members. It's also well deserved for you. Us as politicians had a hard year with an election, but I think the office of the AGSA also did a lot of hard work, and under a lot of difficult circumstances. The political environment changed, and it also did not necessarily assist in all the processes, but once again, we commend you for the hard work and the good work that you do, and have a blessed festive season, a blessed Christmas, and I'm sure that our engagements will be fruitful next year, and we'll come back revitalized to do the hard work and continue the hard work. So, AG, you are excused if you want to leave, but thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. A blessed and safe festive season to all of you. Thank you, Chair. We'll see you next year.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, then we have correspondence, and that is, I mentioned the letter from the National Treasury. If I'm correct, it was distributed to honourable members, and you would have noted that they do note certain, they firstly asked for postponement. Remember, it was actually scheduled, the follow-up meeting with National Treasury on the interventions of outstanding audit fees and the funding model as well of the AG would have taken place today. They asked for postponement, and we granted that, but it will then take place next year. But they did update us on certain interventions that they are currently undertaking, such as writing to municipalities and engaging state-owned companies, and also engaging with the AGSA on certain issues. So that correspondence was disputed. Is there any comments or any questions on the letter by National Treasury? Can be noted as such. Thank you very much. Then there is correspondence from the complainant. Members would remember that we received a complaint by Ms. Moodley Vieira, and we would have dealt with that complaint, but we were then informed that there was an appeal process. She appealed an outcome of a complaint that she lodged with the AGSA, and she then appealed, and the appeal was handled by an external service provider, and there was an outcome of that appeal. So we, members would remember, we then resolved that we can't deal with the complaint up until the appeal is finalized. The appeal has been finalized. She was informed of the outcome of the appeal, and she then wrote to us again, and she said that she's not satisfied with the outcome. But as part of the outcome, the DAG did offer a mediation process between her and the the employee from the AGSA's office that the complaint is about. And I wrote back to Ms. Moodley Vera to urge her to partake in the mediation process. And after the conclusion of the mediation, if she's still not satisfied, she can then again come to us with the complaint. So that is an update on the complaint that we received at this stage. Any comments on that? Nothing, so we can note that as such. Members, I'm not going to engage the draft program today. There is a draft program for next year for the first term. It will be circulated, but we will engage on that early next year. There is still, it is a draft at this stage, and we are still looking at or do you want to flag that? Let me just switch off my camera. Do you want to flag the program just so that members can see what is planned for the beginning of the year?
It's visible, Chair.
Yes, it is. So, honorable members, the planning is that our first engagement will be the 31st of January on Zoom, and that will then be the follow-up meeting with National Treasury, the one that would have taken place today and been postponed to the 31st of January. And then after that, in the week of the first week in February, is according to the parliamentary program, there's slots that's allocated to committees to have strat planning. So the proposal is that we'll have our strat planning the 4th and the 5th. I'll just go up until then, just so that you get a feeling of the program, but we'll engage on that next year. I think the 31st of January is important, and we'll continue with that meeting, members, so that we engage with National Treasury on these interventions as soon as possible and don't leave that for too late. Honourable members, that concludes our meeting, and I want to once again thank you for your participation and for your contributions during this term, and thank you for your support and for enriching the work of the committee with your contributions. Also, a special word of thanks, I'll give you an opportunity now. Also, a word of thanks to the staff, the committee staff, that really does not always have an easy task. There's a lot of vacancies in our committee, and especially Cindy, thank you very much for your hard work. You have to balance and work very hard and under difficult circumstances where there's a lot of problems with two committees that you serve that sit in the same slot a lot of times. So thank you very much, but thank you for all the staff for your hard work. You make our lives easier, and your contribution in that regard is appreciated. Honourable Spies, I'll give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. No, Chair, I just think it is just right and appropriate that we thank you for leading us as Chair in this committee, for the manner in which you approach meetings, the inclusivity, and the fact that you are, giving us guidance in terms of taking us forward when it comes to us executing our duties. And then also, Chair, as you have rightfully said, we serve on many committees, other committees, and it is really heartwarming to see the professionalism from the staff, Cindy and the team and everyone, and the content advisors, and the tiniest, distribution of documents, but the utmost professionalism that it's done with, and really the turnaround time when you ask something, you get an immediate response from the staff. Sometimes you don't even know, but they are just totally on it, and it's really good. It really helps us with the load of work that we have. It makes our jobs a little bit easier when we have a team that really works well. So thank you very much, and may you have a blessed season, Chair, and a well-deserved rest, as well as our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Spies. Do appreciate the kind words, and thank you, Honourable Subrati. I also see your message on the chat. Honourable members, let's conclude. Have a blessed festive season. Have spent time with your families and your loved ones. All the staff members and members, please do travel safe if you travel. Have a good rest, and let's see each other revitalized next year and continue the work that we are doing. Thank you very much, and that concludes the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.